am I supposed to give these out? Are these treats for people?
I believe this is a
Oh, okay. That's wonderful. How are you guys doing? The only brave souls that showed up this morning. Where am I supposed to stand? Is everybody hungover out there or something? Yes? Are you hungover?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Well, I bet nobody can top my story. 4 o'clock in the morning, my toilet exploded in my room.
Oh.
Yeah. Heard something, thought maybe a pipe burst. There was, I was on the ground floor of the hotel, so there was children running and things. But this is 4 o'clock in the morning. Finally had fallen asleep, and this felt like I was in Hawaii or something, right next to a volcano. Mess everywhere, just horrible. So I've been up since 4, but I'm still here, right? All of those panty waists out there that didn't show up this morning. Not proud of them. So how are we doing today? All right, so since everybody is a little bit of low energy, and it is Saturday morning. Oh, there's my buddy. How you doing? I'm going to invite a very special young lady, Alexandra, to start the conversation. Stand up, my dear. You are going to start the conversation by asking me the most unique question that I have ever been asked.
What's your favorite food?
What's my favorite food? That has nothing to do with science fiction or games or anything, but I would say sushi. I live in a place called Studio City, which they refer to as Sushi Row. So there's a ton of wonderful Japanese restaurants, everything from inexpensive to highbrow, and they're all just wonderful. So I would say sushi, except when sushi is bad, then it is not my friend. But we won't talk about that, because that has nothing to do with science fiction or games or books either. So who else has a fascinating question? I bet you do, sir, and you are British, correct?
That's correct.
And where are you from?
Originally London.
Where?
London, just outside London.
I lived there for 10 years. I did. I actually just sold my place 2 years ago.
You got out while the getting was still good.
Very upset about it. What?
You got out while the getting was still good.
Got out while the getting was still good. Yeah, Brexit and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So what is your question for me today?
The pressure is too strong.
I can't hear you. You're going to have to stand up and project with that Shakespearean voice of yours.
What was your favourite moment from Babylon 5? From filming many years of Babylon 5?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I loved it because it sounds horrible, but I really loved Sleeping in Light. I loved what they just showed, of course, death incarnate. That can't be topped. But the speech when I worked with Richard Biggs, Dr. Franklin, and talked about Marcus, I thought that was really a very tender moment, and it was beautiful to film. I don't know if anybody knows the story. Did you see a little clip of me getting out of the elevator? Does anybody know the story behind that?
I thought that was from last night.
No, darling, those are the old days. No, does anybody know that story? Why I was only in that episode for that one thing, don't ask any questions, that one little line? It's because Jerry Doyle and I had a competition. And Jerry had done the pilot, and I did not. So our competition was to be in more episodes than the other person. And he was actually not in a couple of episodes, but I was in every single episode in season 1, season 2, and the season comes up and I get the script and I bring it home and I'm not in the script. I was furious. So the next day I worked for the previous episode, and I went into Joe's office and I said, no. You're going to give Doyle enough reason to take the piss for the next God knows how many years. So you are putting me in this episode. I don't care how you do it. Also, I wanted the residuals, but I'm not stupid. But it was an ego thing with Jerry. It was a competition, and he was so angry when he found out. He said, he got him to write one stupid little thing where you just come out of the elevator, and I said, absolutely, and now I'm officially in every single episode of all the seasons, so that's why I did that. Yes, ma'am?
So, did you feel any pressure when you got the role to be in Babylon 5, like with all the whole Star Trek fandom and all the spin-offs and everything, were you kind of, ambivalent at all about walking into that world of fandom?
Asking if I was ambivalent about walking into the world of science fiction in lieu of the fact that Star Trek was so huge. First of all, I wasn't allowed to watch TV as a kid, so I had no idea what anything was except the Brady Bunch. Second of all, my agent said the classic line, which I still to this day I laugh. When I went up for the role of Ivanova, I went in at around noon and I read, and then they said, can you just come back at 3 o'clock and read with the actor and do exactly what you did? It was like a callback the same day. So I went in and I met Jerry and we did the scene, and we had tons of chemistry, and I went home, and by 5 o'clock I had the job, and it was like bam, bam, bam. And I called my agent and I said, I just did this movie, Clean and Sober, and I think I have a film career. It's Michael Keaton, it's Morgan Freeman. I really think I have a film career. Should I really be committing to 5 years on a science fiction series? Nobody even likes science fiction. Nobody watches science fiction. She said, this is a classic line. She said, Claudia, don't worry. It's not a Star Trek show. It won't even last a season. Yep. So she said, you'll do it for a season, it'll be over. And I went, okay, great. I really like the character. So, but I had read all 3 of the first scripts, and I really did love her. And I thought, if I'm going to be stuck in a science fiction series, of course, this is a terrific role. So I never looked back, and I never regretted my decision, but it was quite funny, because you're right. Everybody thought, oh, it's not Paramount, it's Warner Brothers, and they don't do sci-fi. This is before sci-fi became what sci-fi is now. So. Yes, sir?
Favorite moment from The Hidden?
My favorite moment from The Hidden, oh gosh. Yeah, we talked about that last night at the party. I have a couple of funny hidden stories. Who in this room has seen that film? Anybody? A couple of guys. Of course! I was wearing a G-string. So The Hidden is based on a male alien that comes down to Earth and needs to be inside bodies. Doesn't matter if it's a dog or a male or a female. And I was playing this stripper. Now, mind you, I'd never done nudity in my life, and I also sort of lied to the producers and directors and the director because they had fired this girl that had my role of Brenda Lee Van Buren. They fired her because she just wasn't a great actress. And this was a very physical role. You had to shoot guns, and I was comfortable with that. But they really, really stated that they had to have a woman with, I'm sorry, Alexandra, ginormous you-know-whats. Well, I stuffed my bikini when I went in for the audition. I really stuffed it. Socks, styrofoam things. I created cleavage. I painted it in. I was super skinny back then, so I was completely flat. So I created this illusion, and they wanted to see what you look like. You're playing a stripper. So I quickly opened my dress, quickly closed it, and I got the job. Then the first scene that we shot was that scene. And the director was furious, but at this point he'd already fired an actress, so he couldn't fire me. He knew that I could shoot a gun because we went down to the police department and I showed him, and I was just AK-47 stires, the whole bit. And he knew that I was a good actress, so he was kind of stuck. So they actually built me a fake top with fake appendages in it. So I ended up not having to strip. Which was great because I went to the premiere with my parents. And my father, as subtle and lovely as he is watching the movie, and then comes to that scene, and I'm dancing and everything, and he turns to me and he said, "Did you have plastic surgery of any kind?" And no, Dad, they're prosthetics. It's so cool. They can build aliens, they can build body parts, it's amazing. He went, oh, okay, right. And he continued to watch the film. I am not an anarchist, but I must say that my absolutely favorite part of that entire movie was pulling out that massive, I think it was the Steyr at that point, and just blowing up that police car. Now I know it's a horrible thing to say, and I have nothing against the police, and that's not what I mean at all. It was just the fact that you are in a city street and you've got a huge gun, and I'm not into gun violence at all, but the way they did it, the way they shot it, the way it was just a very, it's not something to do at home, obviously. It's not an example of a good person. It was a film, and she had a male alien trapped in her body. So, yeah, so that was, and the Ferraris and the music was cool too. But that was just kind of a fun thing. That was way before all this gun violence took over the world. It was sort of, that was what action films were all about. And yes, I did an action film with Steven Seagal, which we won't talk about. So, anybody else? Yes, sir.
So you said that you weren't allowed to watch TV as a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what got you into acting then?
Well, I wasn't supposed to be watching television as a kid. And once my mom went to work when I was 8 years old, how could she control what we did when we got home from school? There was a television. And initially, we were allowed to watch 60 Minutes, or I was allowed Monday night to watch Little House on the Prairie if I wanted to. So that was one show a week, or 60 Minutes. So Sunday and Monday, we had an hour of television. So when my mom went to work full-time, she wouldn't come home until 5 or 6, and my dad wouldn't come home until 5 or 6. So there was that little slice of 3 p.m. to 3:30 to 5 where we could secretly watch shows so that we didn't go to school and not know what the kids were talking about. Partridge Family, the Gilligan's Island, this kind of stuff. Yes, I'm aging myself. So what got me into it wasn't really, I saw people like Christy McNichol and Melissa Gilbert and all these kids on television, and I thought, well, this is kind of cool. But the moment was for me, I had 3 older brothers, and I was the baby and the only girl, and they were just constantly attacking me and making fun of me and tripping me and hitting me and spitting on me, so I became very, very shy, and I was like a book nerd. I was just constantly reading books because I felt safe hiding under the piano, with my book, or under my bed where they couldn't find me. So I did a play because my teacher, she thought that I was very shy. She thought the play would be good for me, and also because I had the longest hair in the class, the longest braids, and the role was Chief Massasoit. So it was a Thanksgiving play. So I had very long braids, and she said, well, you're perfect to play the chief. And I got to wear a big feather headdress, and I got the majority of the dialogue in the play, so I had the leading role. And I did the play, and as I'm doing it, I'm realizing that the adults they're stopped and they're listening. And the kids that came with the adults are stopped and they're listening to us kids. And I thought, wow, that's the first time I've ever had anybody's attention in my life. This is great. They can't talk while I'm talking. So that was sort of it brought me out of my shell. It brought me out of I'm still an introverted extrovert, meaning that I'm incredibly shy, but I put on a facade for my persona as an actress. So it's worked out well. Normally I stay at home and I'm borderline agoraphobic. I really don't go out much, but when I do go out, I can use that to meet people and to make a connection. But it all started with that little play and being beaten up my entire life. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What film is your personal favorite or that you hold dearly, and why?
What is my personal favorite?
Any film that you did that you hold personal, like it's like something dear to you that you just, and why is it?
I hate to tell you, but my favorite role that I've ever done in my life is a film called Hexed. And it's one person has seen it. I think you could probably buy it for 29 cents right now. It came out after Basic Instinct and all those sort of, really thriller with the woman revenging on the man and all that kind of stuff. And I play this absolutely insane woman who lost a lot of weight and put on a fake French accent and becomes a supermodel. And she goes around killing people. And it's really broad silly comedy. But the reason why I loved it is because at that point in my life, my dream was to be like a Jim Carrey, just really exaggerated comedy and to do fun roles like that. And I can hear them talking. It's my only good ear. And so in Hex, the director allowed me to do anything I wanted to do, basically. Hey guys, keep it down, man, I can hear you. I can't focus. I can't focus. Just whisper, thank you. Anyway, so that's why I liked Hex. So it was very, very broad comedy, and it was very, very over the top, and I got to do lots of fun things. And there's lots of classic one-liners. You know, there's a silly scene where the guy says, you know, okay, we're going to a door to meet this killer, and Ari Gross says to me, okay, now I don't want you to be confrontational. You gotta be non-confrontational. I go, yeah, I'm cool. And the guy opens the door, and I pull a gun out and shoot him in the head, and I go, was that non-confrontational? You know, it's sort of like this, just, you know, and at one point he says, you're bloody murderous, and he slams the door, and what did you say? He says, I said you're a murderess. I said, oh, I thought you said Methodist. For a moment, I was, you know, just really over the top. It's just really over the top, silly humor. And everyone who watches it will probably say, this is the stupidest film I've ever seen, but I liked it. So that's my long-winded, and he liked it, right?
Loved it.
You see? Yeah. Like I said, 29 cents.
You also
watch it
do
for
the-
free on Tubi.
You also did the Jaguar commercials.
The Jaguar voice, yeah. Yeah, Jay Leno made fun of me. I was seriously, that's when I knew that, wow, I have a modicum of fame for 1 second. He made fun of me on his Tonight Show because he said, what is this, what accent is this woman using in this Jaguar? But you have to understand, that's the way they wanted me to say it. It was a sort of a transatlantic Jaguar. Nobody speaks like that, but that's what they wanted. So, you know, I was happy. It was the best job I ever had in my life. The Penguin! Met you last night. Hello, my lord. Anybody else have a question? If you don't, I'm going to leave. Yes, sir.
Do you have a dream role that you've always wanted to play in either film or theatre that you've never had the chance to, and why?
Do I have a dream role that I want to play in a film or theater or television, and why? I have to preface that with saying that I very much doubt that I'll be doing theater again, because I'm just not I've been doing it since I was a kid, and the last show I did was the Edinburgh Festival, 2006, two-hander. It's a lot of dialogue to learn, and it's, you know, a lot of people get this huge thrill out of being on stage. I feel it's repetitious. I don't like doing the same thing every night. You know, I really prefer the medium of film or television. And games. I love doing games. Voiceover work is fantastic. I think, as I mentioned before, I've always wanted to do a more comedy, because frankly, I always get cast as the police officer, which is great, and detective, FBI, commander, captain, Navy, Army, Marines. Maybe it's my voice, my height. Maybe it's just that I seem authoritative. Maybe because I yelled at these gentlemen over there. Maybe that's why. No, it's just something that I always get cast in these. I used to get a lot of sort of some interesting sort of psychologically interesting characters, but I'd like to do something a little bit more fun, as opposed to serious. So I don't have a specific role in mind. I also, one of my all-time favorite jobs, because I collect edged weapons and I love sword fighting, was Highlander. So that I would love to do anything that's historical. And they have so many shows now on every, you know, Amazon, whatever, the Sun King, Louis, they've got everything in British history, Irish histories, and I'm just like, come on, man, I'm good at accents. I gotta get something with a sword in my hand. But there was something very, very satisfying about doing sword work and having my flashback stuff be medieval, and plus we shot in France, and I got to chop a man's head off. So, and I was the oldest immortal in the entire show, so it was cool. That was a really cool job. So anything that is funny or period. Or both, right? Mixed together. That would be Mel Brooks. But